What does world-class real estate look like to you?
It's about creating relationships,
consistent communication,
estate agency with a great culture, who care for their people, who care for their clients, who care for their customers, without just looking at the number at the end of the commission check.
I think it's about amazing customer service.
It's about people, not property.
This episode is sponsored by Iceberg Digital.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Worrall, and as ever, I'm joined by Mr. Ian Macbeth. Good morning, mate. How are you?
Yeah, well, off camera, we were chatting about a few things going on at the moment, weren't we? So lots going on. We got books going on, there's conferences, we got mastermind in a couple of weeks, we got a face-to-face recording with a few secret guests that we won't reveal just yet, but excited to always record those face-to-faces with people. Personally, all sorts going on. Got bitten by a tick yesterday. The missus had to pull that out the arm with a tweezer. That was fun. Got some bad toothache and pulled my hamstring at personal training. So yeah, hat trick of injuries yesterday.
That's what they say. If it happens in 3, then it's all done. So not quite your normal positive, energetic self then, by the sounds of things. Because you're still not training.
Well, I'm actually feeling better for that reason. I did manage to get back out on the weekend and did a bit of run walk, eased my way back into a little bit of run walk for 7.5 miles over the weekend. So I felt much better for that, to be fair. Back doing a bit of yoga, which I think is why I pulled my hamstring, because I did yoga and then PT. So probably should have thought that through a little bit better. But I'm feeling all right. I've got a race in 4 weeks. So can I get a recovery block in to be able to race in 4 weeks? And then we're doing the Guinness World Record Challenge, which I just bought my super shoes for the London Marathon. So if anyone wants some tips on some super shoes, I've bought some that are illegal for the pros. But as I'm not a pro, they are legal. Do not let Guinness World Record know, because I'm not sure whether they would disqualify the race. But all photos will be taken from ankle upwards. But I'm going to be fast. They're
like the ones that he did they redistribute.
Yeah, they're 50 mil stack, and the legal limit is 39. So we're literally running on clouds, basically. So I'm just going to be bouncing in an inflatable avocado outfit around for 26.2 miles. Is my hope. That's how it's going on in my head. In reality, it's going to be a super hot day. I'm going to get heat exhaustion. I'll be snotty, sweaty, and horrible, I would have thought, but we're going to go for it. How are you, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Before we jump onto that, though, let's just run through that. You mentioned this world record attempt to me last year. I don't think you've talked about it on here, actually. So do you want to just explain a little bit about it before we dive into last year?
Yeah, of course, yeah. So we bought a charity place. The charity that we support locally to us, it's called First Days. They support kind of kids in need, families in need, kids that can't afford beds. They supply beds and bedding for all sorts of kids in poverty. They do a lot of school uniform as well for parents that struggle with the school uniform, to keep the school uniform up. So really, really good local charity, small charity. So they managed to get some London Marathon spots, and we basically bought one off them. Rather than trying to raise money, we just bought one off them, because what we didn't realise is a charity actually has to buy their London Marathon charity spot. So it's £700 a spot for the charity to buy. And they had 7. So they were out of pocket by serious money, basically, from day one. So we paid £5,000 for it to kind of cover their costs almost. I'm going to raise some money for it, but I applied to Guinness World Record about running the fastest male marathon runner ever in an inflatable emoji suit. And as everyone knows, there is an avocado emoji hacking the system. So yeah, I've got to run the London Marathon head to toe, head to shin. It has to go below the knees and it has to cover the full head in an inflatable avocado outfit. And I've got to do it in a 3:40 marathon. So anyone that's run a marathon knows that's...
I didn't win my marathon in that.
Yeah, it's quite quick on its own right, let alone in a less than aerodynamic heat suit, basically. And I've not been able to train because I've been injured for 3 weeks, and there's no guarantee I'm going to be able to train. But hey ho, I'm going to do it. So we'll maybe pop a link in the show notes. I'm going to start doing some promotion for it in March as we lead up to it, when I get back running. Did do the first test run in it. Did 4 miles and the suit broke, and it was way harder than I thought. So that's my only test so far, and it wasn't very good.
Why did the suit break?
The fan inside it was obviously not built for the way that I run, which is not a natural runner's run. I'm more of a like a high rocks runner, someone that's been in the gym their whole life that just goes bomb, 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 just grits it. So the pin flew out and the fan broke and it deflated after like 4 miles. So
would that be disqualification then?
It would be, but I learned what the problem was. So I'm going to put some tape over where the pin would jump out, and bought a new suit. So yeah, I've got a couple of backup suits. Don't tell Mike, they're like 55 quid a pop, but and I bought some super shoes on the business because officially they're for work reasons. They're like,
you've got it. What do you say? Hacking the system.
Yeah, this is just money laundering. It's not really a challenge. It's just ultimate money laundering.
At least this isn't going to go out into the split worlds, is it? You know.
Yeah. If there is an accountant listening, please keep it to yourself. Thank you.
Very good. I'm sure that'll make a very entertaining video content as well.
Yeah. So talk to me about the book, mate. How are we getting on with the book before we cover some topics on first-time buyers and some other bits?
We were just talking actually about launch dates. So we won't say it yet because we just need something to fall into place to enable it to happen. But I reckon we're probably 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away, maybe. We've got half term in there, and I'm assuming I'm going away. I'm assuming that you'll be busy with childcare and that sort of thing. So that's going to throw out that week. So yeah, we've had a really fantastic uptake on the waiting list and what have you. So we'll communicate with them over the next few weeks when we actually have a date. But I would think, certainly by mid-March, so that people who have pre-ordered a book will be in receipt of it. That's certainly the aim. It's taken a little bit longer, but we've been waiting on other people for various bits and pieces. But actually now we should all be pretty much set up. So yeah, excited because as January drags, it now feels like February is accelerating. We're recording on the 10th. This is going to go out on the 17th and 18th. And suddenly you start to think, crikey, the year is getting on. And it's really important, I think, that those habits and routines that we set out in January are now nailed in, because you can just start to see how quickly time is going. I said yesterday, I'm thinking it was still January. I said something to someone, and it's like February. I was like, oh yeah, good point. It just feels now like, and we're not far off halfway through February. So in fact, by the time this goes out, we'll be into the latter half of it. So yeah, it's time is flying on, and I would like to have had the book out before now, but such is life. It isn't quite there, but it's very, very close now. And we've had a few people write various different things in terms of contributing to it. That's gone really, really well and really positive. So yeah, I'm really excited to get it out.
Yeah, very much so. In fact, 2026 so far was summed up for me on national TV. I know you and the boys watch Gladiators.
Yeah.
But the Gladiators, the first weekend of February, I think it was on the 6th. You got the guy in the red was the son of the guy that made it to the semis, and then you got the baker, like the kind of oriental looking baker in blue.
Yeah, I've not watched this weekend yet.
Oh mate, I won't tell you who wins, but what I will tell you, it's the best travelator you've ever seen in your life of those attacking it. It's the funniest thing you will ever see, and the baker is the summary. Him going up the travelator is the ultimate summary of 2026, because I've never seen someone go up it in an S, like just legs everywhere, just attacked it like you've never seen, and then just realised it was going way too fast for him. And that for me is 2026. I've attacked it like an absolute beast. It's thrown me off. I'm going left, I'm going right. Didn't make it to the top, and that so far has been the year, because it's been so busy, hasn't it? Like, yeah. Property market has been so busy. There's been some interesting articles actually. I think you were looking at first time buyers. I was looking at I think it was Halifax reported UK average house price is now over 300k. I think that's the first time they've seen that. The London market's slumping again. Swap rates are going up a little bit. I'm just looking through some of the current affairs at the moment.
Yeah, the article that I was reading was really positive about first-time buyers, in terms of the number of inquiries coming from first-time buyers and how strong that was. So that was on Estate Agent Today this morning.
I feel like lenders, I was talking to Harvinder from Mortgage Tribe last week on a podcast, and I feel like lenders have really, really done their bit to try and get creative for first-time buyers with their lending. They're really trying to pull mum and dad's funds in quite unique ways, which is quite nice to see. So it doesn't surprise me. What's the kind of summary of the article?
So it was researched by Connells, and the sort of headline was 34.3% of homes sold across Great Britain last month in January were bought by first-time buyers. And that's the highest share recorded in any January since they started records, 2006. So, I mean, a third of the market across the country. In London, almost half of the market, 48.3% of purchases are from first-time buyers.
Wow.
Interestingly enough, up from 22% a decade ago. So that is a massive increase in the amount of first-time buyers. And part of the reason, what is the justification in this article, is because of the mortgage rates. 93% of first-time buyers secured a sub 5% mortgage rate. So obviously the rates have come down, but we talked about it on here about the difference between a 10% deposit and a 40% deposit is really quite low now, which shows the banks are pretty relaxed about where property prices are going. They don't consider that having a 10% mortgage, having a 10% deposit from somebody is much riskier than having a 40% deposit. So that's really encouraging. And I think the amount of first-time buyers coming into the market going up, those record numbers, that's really, really positive, and shows quite a healthy property market, in my opinion.
Yeah, it feels that way. I think it really feels that way at the moment. I think properties are selling, properties are coming on the market, the buyer activity is there. I do think this year we're still going to, I think more properties are coming on than, I think the property rate of listing percentage is higher than the new rate of buyer, which I think will mean by summer it will be not flooded, but a little bit stock heavy, I think. So I think it's important that we're really sharp on our offer negotiating. We're really sharp on wrapping up the sales, getting the pipeline really clean. I think we might find normally when that happens, you get quite a lot of open chain business, don't you? Sort of both ends, actually.
Yes.
So I think we'll see a little bit of that is open chain stuff in the summer that we'll have to go to work and be creative and be quite strong on our advice, you know, bottom and top end. But if the first time buyers are there, I'm quite interested to take your opinion on this, but we noticed last year that when the stock market slumped, the upsizers slumped. And I do think that when the stock market gets hit a little bit, Trumponomics has a bit of an impact in that, doesn't it? And when it gets hit, you do see the middle generations, maybe just above us, that sort of generation, you know, kind of in their 50s and 60s, they stop entering the market because they've taken a bit of a hit. They've got quite a lot of ISA money and stuff like that. What I've noticed this week is that Bitcoin in the last 6 months is 60% down.
Yeah.
So if you'd have bought Bitcoin last year in October, for example, it peaked at around 91 pounds per coin, whereas now it sits at like 52. And I just wondered whether the modern first-time buyer was leveraging Bitcoin for their deposit, and if their deposit has been hit by 25, 30, 40%, whether the modern day first time buyer is geared by the kind of cryptocurrency in the same way that the generation above us is kind of geared by stocks and shares a little bit. I've got nothing to balance that on. It was just something that I was interested. I don't know. That could play a part in things. It also shows the importance of property investing, because if the stock market's that vulnerable and crypto can lose 40% in 6 months, and the property prices last year went up by 1%, and that's a bad year, you can't argue with the fact that property's the safe place to go, right?
Well, we're biased on this point, aren't we? But yeah,
But we're correct.
Yeah, and that's fine. I often say I'm biased when I'm about to give a very factual point. I say it when I'm talking about the local area to buyers round here as well. But we've had more and more, not necessarily first-time buyers, actually, Ian, but younger purchasers, so younger than me, basically, with proving deposit funds in crypto. And it would be quite a fair assumption to look at it and say, well, actually, the volatility of that market is can underpin people's ability to purchase, people's ability to upsize. I remember we were selling quite a big house to a young business owner, quite successful, clearly. But he was saying, well, I don't want to buy it this week because my crypto's just dropped X or whatever. And, I said, oh, I think it was a long-term purchase. And he was saying, well, I need to wait for my crypto to go up. And I'm like, well, maybe you should take it out. And we had a long debate about it. But it does when you're proving funds and they've got the money in crypto. It is the same in the stock market. It just doesn't feel quite as volatile for whatever reason. Maybe it's a lack of understanding on my part. But when people prove funds in crypto, it does make us feel, pretty uncomfortable.
And imagine if we were London agents, because I talked to a few London agents, and it's way more common.
Yes,
they're buying stock.
We're probably about 10 years behind you, who are probably a couple of years behind London. So it's going to become more prevalent, and I'm well aware that our market is nowhere near as exposed to that sort of thing as you, or indeed, as you mentioned, the London market.
Yeah, I actually think the home counties is a little bit behind cities like Birmingham's and Liverpool's and Manchester's. Actually, I think they're closer to London. We're such a sort of more villagey, small town type vibe. We don't have those. We've got Reading, but it's such a multicultural kind of dip in, dip out sort of city. No one goes to Reading because it's got the Manchester culture or the Liverpool vibe or the Birmingham centralisation. It doesn't have that. It's just you're there for work reasons and you dip in, dip out. Very tenant heavy, but outside of that, because it's such a family estate type market, you're here for the primary schools and the fact that there's no traffic. I think we're actually further behind some of those others on that basis. But because we are 50-minute drive into London, I do talk to a lot of London agents, and I think that's something just to be aware of as estate agents over the next 5 years, 3 years, I would say.
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't know if there's a great deal that we can do to manage that, but you have to adapt to the changing economic cycle, don't you? And you mentioned Trumponomics, and that is increasingly volatile, and I can't imagine it's going to change. He's going to do and be what he is, and do and say what he does. Hopefully, the stocks and shares won't react quite as badly to that. If people get used to it, then people will know how to take it a little bit. He just does things his own way, doesn't he?
Yeah, and I think we're such a global world now. I know it sounds silly to say, but more so than ever, everything's so connected now. Even 15 years ago, it wasn't really. We were quite focused on our own inflation, base rate, blah, 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 blah. The pound was euros, pounds, whatever you want to kind of say. We're all in that same boat. It was okay. Now we're an island on our own, away from the euros, but we're so embeddedly connected to what the dollar does, because it is the currency that affects the planet. And that now we have to be aware of as estate agents, because before we could just say, yeah, the Bracknell market's all right, don't worry what's going on in Wokingham. Whereas now it's like the property market is dictated by what is going on in New York and Washington and Paris and, Shanghai and all sorts of different areas, really. So we do have to be a little bit foot on the ground, ear to the ground, I should say, when it comes to the global economics, I think. But it's great to see the first-time buyers. That for London as well, like 40% first-time buyers. I do wonder what the average age is of a London first-time buyer.
I bet that's in the 40s.
In a world where estate agents are bombarded by prop tech hype and AI buzzwords, one company is setting the standard.
Iceberg Digital. With AI-powered prospecting that uncovers new listings before your competitors, marketing that wins you instructions by putting your brand front and centre, and a fully integrated CRM that transforms how your team works every day. This is not another tool, it's world-class real estate technology. Stop just doing the basics better and start using software that actually moves the dial in your business. Discover icebergdigital.co.uk today.
Yeah, I saw a stat or a GIF or something like that. It's like first time buyer in 2030 is like a man with a Zimmer frame, because it could quite easily be, right. But no, I do think for us as estate agents, as I said, probably over the last couple of months, these are the years where the good agents really, paint their worth. I do really believe that. And I had an agent actually, I posted something on LinkedIn off the back of the training that we did with Stephen Brown, and it was my sort of interpretation of how I would go into a valuation now, or a PAM as you call it, a market appraisal, an advice meeting. And I had a couple of valuers in the industry kind of DM me and ask for pick my brains. I'm going to speak to one of them on Wednesday just because he asked for a little bit of advice around it. But how are you finding those conversations in the living room directly with the clients now? I know you've kind of restructured to, yes, we do advice meetings, but then we've done that training this year, very different. You seem like you're really in your flow at the moment in terms of being, Mark Worrall, the estate agent. So what sort of conversations are you having with clients? And also, and I know it's a two-ended question, is there a difference between the two different brands, the two different markets, the run-of-the-mill kind of moving works to then your kind of more prestige stuff? Is anything different in those two as well?
So the training that we're referring to is the Phil M. Jones Exactly What to Say training that Stephen hosted, and I got the role play cards. They arrived last week from that, so my intention is to run through and have a bit of fun with the team on that in our next training session, which will be a week today. So that's the intention, to try and use that to encourage more people to use those techniques really that he introduced us to. And to answer the first part of your question, yeah, my conversations in terms of in the living room are now much more focused, particularly initially in the early stages of the training, of the conversation, focusing on how they got to where they are, looking at their past so that they can answer the questions easily, relax, and it helps the conversation flow, and looking to the future as well. In fact, to the extent where I was talking to someone at evaluation last week, the valuation went really well, and the focus was so much about this house, how they've got it there, that actually we didn't talk much about their onward plans. And I know what they're looking to do, and her focus was specifically on getting this house sold because it's a premium property and so on and so forth. But when I actually reflected on it yesterday, I was like, actually, we probably should have had a bit more of a conversation about their onwards plans. So it's about trying to find that right balance for me at the moment in terms of a bit of a new technique, but it's only a minor adjustment because I've always been very much focused, right, get this house. Our thing is to get this house sold, and I build rapport pretty naturally with people anyway, so it's not been a massive issue. But what I have found when I do that is you just almost visually see them relax, and that's a really great way to start any advice appointment or when you're entering someone's house. So that's been a massive difference, and it's a little thing, but it can make a big difference. And you're probably having a conversation for somewhere between 2 and 5 minutes on stuff that they can answer easily, that then makes the rest of the meeting much more productive in my experience. So they're going really well. Done a lot of evaluations over the last few weeks and month probably since that training, and I'm just still perfecting it. And I want to do more practice with the team with the role play cards that we've got with it. So trying to move it on a notch as well. And to answer your question,
you finding on that bit, are you finding that by putting that in play and having them relaxed more, that on the other end of the spectrum, the fee conversation is an easier conversation to have, because that's where a lot of valuers out there struggle. Is they kind of do the rapport bit very well, but the whole structure of the appointment is almost apprehensively geared towards when you quote the fee. Are you finding that part of it? You're obviously confident and super experienced, but are you finding that bit is kind of much smoother now in conversation?
Yeah, we increased our fees a little bit last year, and we've had no pushback to that at all. And in fact, I was thinking about this just last week, how you're right, because of the experience and the time I've been doing it, it's very natural for me to talk about fees. Interestingly enough, I got an email on Saturday that questioned the fee, that plus VAT, inclusive of that. And I went back and clarified, and I thought I never negotiate on my fees now. That's sort of, a rule that we've had in place for some time, and some people appreciate it, some people don't. And I thought, should I ring him? I just emailed him back, and it was just very factual about the fees. And he just came straight back to me and said, "Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. Please, can we go ahead?" And I thought, in a less experienced me, a number of years ago, I would have probably self-negotiated that fee, and simply because he asked a clarifying question didn't mean that he was questioning the fee. But sometimes we can get in our own heads with that. The fee conversation is one that I think dominates the estate agent's head rather than the actual facts of it. And I think we all really need to remember that it's a practice thing. If you keep doing it, you will get better at it. And whether you practice in private with your teams, which I would strongly suggest, talking about fees, being questioned on fees, making sure that your response to that is really natural. You can't practice that enough. But if you're doing it in the living room and doing it every week, the same thing, because I really wanted this house where this guy questioned the fee, and I know it's one that we could sell, it would have been really easy for me to say, all right, okay, well, I'll do it with the inclusive VAT, which is the bit that you were questioning. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because I knew that the valuation had gone well, because we talked about, all that we've just talked about the past and talked about the plans. So it would have been really easy to cost myself 20% on the fee with that.
And do you think you gain more respect? I feel sometimes with clients, when they ask that question, but you're strong and confident in your response, that actually there's an era of respect and authority that's gained in that moment as well. So I sometimes
asked the question twice in the last week on that, and one was a premium home, one was one of our core homes, 450 to 750 grand, and so there's 0.2% on that is quite a lot of money. So particularly the collection property, when he questioned me on that, I felt that level of respect was definitely there. He said, well, so and so are cheaper, like they're like 0.25% cheaper than we are. And I said, well, we don't negotiate on our fees. We're a premium agent. We know why our fees are a little bit more expensive. And he used, I can't remember where I heard it, but I think it's very, very effective in terms of, and it's a fine line between seeming arrogant when you're talking about fees and confident. And I'm well aware of that. And we can all stray one side of the line or another at times. But I said, well, the thing is, every estate agent knows what other estate agents charge. And there's a reason why they're at that level and we're at this level. And that was the line. And it was on the phone, this conversation, but I could almost see him nodding as I was saying it. And, he's not instructed me yet. I'm expecting it today, so I'll update you next week which way it goes. But I think it's that level of respect that you get from not negotiating fees, because I think people expect estate agents to neg on the fees. Yeah. And you don't do it in any other industry. You wouldn't walk into a solicitor and say, "Oh, can you? It's $2,000 for the letter. Can you do it for $1,000?" You just wouldn't dream.
It's a funny one, right? Because everything in estate agency, and I include letting agency in this, has been over the last 10 years by the government about putting everything to the forefront, explaining everything up front. Lettings fees have to be published on the website, tenant fee ban, etc., etc. Everything has been geared around, and in terms of, you know, SLAs and how we work with the Ombudsman and PRS as well, in terms of offers and blah, 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 blah. Everything has been legally made to put information to the forefront. And I just feel that at some point, fees will have to be publicised up front, you know, because you don't walk into the coffee shop and not see a price list. You don't buy any tech these days and not see a price drop down on the website.
Yeah.
But in estate agents, it's like, oh, can I get you? I'd like a valuation. Can I find out how much you charge? Oh, we won't say that until we get out, and you know, we need 59 minutes of conversation in face-to-face setting,
Yeah.
before the fee is quoted. Like that's how it is, right? And it's a bit weird on our end. So I understand why the client then finds it weird. But if all estate agents said we're a 1% agent, we're 1.25, 1.5, 1.8, 2%, 2.5%, whatever you are, up front, how much nicer would that meeting be, knowing they know what you charge? So actually the conversation is geared around pricing, marketing strategy, services. And then they have a choice at the end to say, is there value in the 1.5 over the 1% or value in the 2% over the 1.5? I'm kind of all for it. If
I was just thinking, I know Perry Power puts his fees on his website. He's quite proud to do that. As before you were talking, then I was thinking maybe we should start putting our fees on our website. And there's that fear, isn't there, that you won't get called out.
Mhm.
But then I'm thinking personally, we want to work with clients who respect what we do and are willing to pay the fee. And you know, whilst our fees percentage wise are not, you know, not massive, we are one of the more expensive agents in our area. And if people don't see the value and don't call you out, they're probably not going to see the value having explained it to them. It's a bit of an old-fashioned way of thinking, because particularly now, if they're calling you out, they've probably seen you on social, they've probably seen your videos, and they've probably been on your web. Well, they'll have to be on your website if your fees are on your website. If your upfront content isn't 1.5%, then they won't call you out. If it is, they will. So I think
in the first year,
fashioned.
I realised exactly that. And you know where you said it's sometimes in your head. I spent my whole working career as an agent in the Bracknell market. First time buyer market. It's one of the cheaper markets, big town, 40,000 chimney pots, average prices, probably around the national average, whereas in the home counties it's probably 50, 70 grand higher. So, you know, 1960s ex-local authority market, just go
Volume.
Proper volume. And then when we started Avocado, within, I don't know, 12 months, 18 months, through a knock-on of impact, I ended up going and getting called out to one of the developers that we were talking to's property up the road in Ascot, which is a way more prime market. His house was coming on somewhere between 3 and 3.5 million.
Yeah.
And I had no idea of that prime market because I'd never worked in it. It wasn't the market of the agency. You know, we were kind of like the Foxtons of the home counties. You know, that wasn't our market at all. So I did all the conversation, really had no right to list the house, if I'm honest with you, but I was purely confident in what we were doing, and got to the end of it and he said, right, what are you going to charge, Ian? I was like, well, we charge 1.5 plus VAT, you know, kind of almost sunk into my seat thinking it's like £3.5 million house.
Yeah.
And he just went, okay, yeah, I've had 3 others out. You're the cheapest of the group. And I was like, what the hell? Like, because that end of the market, it's 2%, it's 1.75 with 2.5 grand up front in marketing costs, which we were doing all the video work ourselves, so we weren't charging that. And it's amazing how sometimes you just get a shot in the head where you're like, oh, it's all in my head. Like, I should have charged more.
Yep.
So it is interesting, but yeah, it would be very interesting to see. I wouldn't put fees on the website unless it was an even battlefield. I think if everyone had to put the fees on the websites, then it's down to who markets their message properly. And I'd love that, obviously, because that's my bag. But, you know, the good agents would know what's going on and you'd be called out for that reason, I think. So, no, interesting. It'd be interesting to see how fees, because there's been a lot of reports that, you know, I think the UK average fee is like 1.1%, something like that, I think, because I don't know where that data comes from. Mr. Watkins sources it from somewhere. But it'd be interesting to see by the end of this year whether that's significantly up, because I do think the more modern estate agency business owner is trying to drive those efficiencies. They have to drive those efficiencies because, you know, Sean Adams talking about the right move bill again, you know, and he's right. And not
Nice 12% increase. Cheers.
yeah, off the back of last year's 22% increase. You know, it's horrific. But the only thing that we can do is what Sean's doing, which is fight the good fight. On the flip end, we have to pass that on to the client.
Yeah, absolutely.
The only thing we can do, because if you were getting your
business,
if you were getting your fence panel post, you know, replaced on the weekend, if the fence panel was 40 quid before and it's 65 quid now, it's 25 quid more expensive for you. He's not doing the work for less money, but he's passing the cost on. But we don't do that. We just drop our fees again. So, yeah, I do think I'm going ranty there, but I do think it's something that we have to see at the end of the year, whether agents can be strong enough to keep doing that. Otherwise, the profit margin keeps disappearing. Ultimately.
We turned on our on zero. We'd never done it for some reason. The percentages through our board meeting in January, and we went through it this weekend. I can tell you, Rightmove was a big percentage of our turnover. You know, when you look at it, because there's loads that are like 0. whatever percent, and you look at it, you're like, where are the chunky bits? Rightmove is a chunky bit. I'm sure any estate agent, the owner knows the Rightmove bill and the portion of it is, but when you put it in percentage terms, it's a bit of an eye opener. And I'm not a Rightmove slammer by any stretch of the imagination. It works for us. It's the only portal that we advertise on. I don't believe that you can be a really serious estate agent if you're not on it. But the costs are going up. The costs to run the business are going up. Minimum wage is going up. We can't just keep our fees low. We've got to continue to push them up. But you've got to be skilled enough and talented enough and all the rest of the things that you need as an estate agent, enthusiastic, precise, all of these things. You have to be that to justify the fees. And we were talking to some solicitors, and I think this is your opinion as well, but we were talking about it in the conveyancing market yesterday. The same thing applies to the estate agents market. I think you'll get a split. I think you'll get the basic, 1% agents, stack it high, sell it cheap. AI, makes them efficient enough to deal with it, or they just don't ring people back. And then you'll get the agents that offer a more personalised service where you're dealing with someone who really knows what they're talking about, and they're charging, 1.5%, 2%, whatever the figure might be, and probably looking at pushing it upwards always. Which is that's life, isn't it? We strive to be better than we are today, and that means that we strive to put our fees up. I'm hoping that we're sat here in 10 years talking about 5% fees. It would be really nice, wouldn't it?
But even those incremental changes, 0.1%, 0.01%, 0.25, whatever it may be, because costs have jumped, like you said, with staff and employees. It's interesting on the self-employed model, because the self-employed models for, the big kind of American ones, and then the bigger independents like what we are, they've been built on what they chart, 70-30 split, 69-31 split, whatever the split is, license fee, £100, £150, £200 license fee, having X amount of agents, 20, 30, 40 agents per pot. It's been built on cost base that was 5-6 years ago. But, as we've now seen, head office staff is, call it 20% more expensive. Rightmove bill for us is probably about 35% up every single month in terms of cost. Some of the prop tech that we use, Sprift, for example, recalibrated their fees with us, and that was more or less a 40% jump overnight for us. But we don't pass that cost on to our clients, which is the estate agent. But how is it going to impact the self-employed model? And how is it going to impact the new agents? One of my friends that started an estate agency round the corner, speaking to him the other day, and he's in that crazy whirlwind of the first 18 months, and first 6 months he was rocking and rolling, and now you're kind of 11 months down the line, 40 grand's worth of his pipeline fell out of bed over Christmas, and it was like getting hit in the face with a cricket bat. It's That's a horrible scenario to be in. I remember my first fall through at £7,000, one Bloomfield Dale in Amen Corner, 4.5 years ago. The chap called me and said, we're not moving abroad now. And it still now makes me feel a bit sick inside. It hurts, doesn't it, at that end of the scale? So it'd be interesting to see how that hits those types of agents as well, because somewhere along the lines we have to take a stand and start charging our worth, or otherwise we just stand still, and if we stand still on our prices we lose profit, basically. So
lose profit, lose businesses, lose houses, all of these things, these decisions that you make in the living room when you're talking about fees can make a massive difference, because if those fall throughs and the rest of your chain is at 1.5 rather than 1.25 or whatever it is, that might just be the bit that keeps the light on in those early days, because it's hard. This industry is hard, particularly the timescales to earn make it such. So yeah, we wish we could change a number of things about the industry, but I think fees and pushing fees up and publicising stuff on websites and changing a little bit about the process. I know you don't think that estate agents should value houses. I think I agree with that. All of these changes, it'd be really interesting to see what comes out of the government's so-called review on the housing market over the next years. Regardless of that, we can all make decisions that bring us closer to where we want to be every single day.
I'm going to be, by the time I turn 50, I'm going to be in the government advising them on estate agency. It's my new target. I'm going to make some of these things happen. Scary place for estate agents, but I'm going to make that happen. There you go. I'll put it out there in the world.
There you go. Yeah. Now it's going to happen. Good luck if that is the case. Yeah, that would be. I think that's a fabulous way just to wrap up there. Ian for PM. I think, is that what was?
I'm not sure about that. More likely to be a property manager than a prime minister in 8 years' time. Before we do wrap up, I've got to ask you, because you are a rugby man. Six Nations. What's your thoughts on that? Who's taking that title this year?
France started very, very well. When this goes out, we'll be another step closer to knowing. I think England are in a good place. I think that good place probably ends in Paris for the last week now. I think we've got France in Paris for the Grand Slam, and they look like they were playing a different game against the Irish, who were a good side, by the way. So England are in very good form. I think it's going to be a bit of a step too far with 3 away games this year. So I think France, unfortunately, as much as it pains me to say it, probably take the Grand Slam, and England are left learning some lessons ahead of the next World Cup, and hopefully that's enough to inspire them to go on and do more, because they're in a very good place. You can't really take a great deal of analysis when you play Wales. One of my good mates from uni is a Wales fan, and he said, "Oh, good result, we kept it under 50," and that probably lets you know where Wales are as a rugby nation at the moment. So anything that you take from that, take with a pinch of salt. England are in a good place, but I think France are probably just a little bit too strong, particularly at home for us, as they were for the Irish, unfortunately. But Gregor Townsend to get sacked after we beat Scotland on Saturday.
France, Mark's cool. I feel strong about England this year. I feel like this is England's year, so I might get on Paddy Power and put 20 quid on England to win the Six Nations and the World Cup as a double. See what that comes in as.
That would be some decent odds. I mean, Steve Borthwick went to my school, so he can have a gold postbox around here if that happens. That'd be fabulous. Yeah. As you know, we do this because we love our industry. We will see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's chat, please share it out on social. Reach out to one of us or share it with colleagues. Thank you very much for listening, and we will see you again next week.